I'm Bambi Francisco, and I'm speaking with Craig Sherman. He's the CEO of Gaia Online. It's a social gaming community for teens and 20-something-year-olds. Craig, thanks for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Gaia has been around for 7 years, since 2003.
Yeah.
A lot has changed then, and I'm sure you've also grown significantly. How many teenagers now and 20-something-year-olds are on Gaia?
So we have about 9 million uniques a month right now. So if you look back, I joined in 2005, and we've grown maybe 15x in traffic during that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is it mainly, what percentage are from the U.S.?
So it's about 85% U.S. and Canada. And median age is 18 years old, and the span is about 13 to 25.
And is it mostly girls, 60%, 75% girls?
It's probably 60-40, but I'm convinced the guys come because the girls are there.
I see. Now, is it their Facebook, social, is that their...
Yeah, it's interesting. It is something they do in addition to, not instead of Facebook. Everybody on Gaia is also on Facebook these days, and they're using Twitter, and they're probably doing half dozen other things online. They're doing that, and they're using Gaia also.
Well, how long do they spend? How long do they spend online daily?
So we actually, if you look at Hitwise, we'll usually be any given month the #1 and #2 site in all of social media. If you take the top 50 sites in social media, including gaming, video, etc., it'll be 50 plus minutes per visit. 50. Yeah. The engagement's pretty extraordinary per user. Yeah, we're still small relative to a site like Facebook in terms of total users or YouTube, but per user, the level of engagement's extraordinary.
Now, are you making money when you're engaging with them? I mean, clearly, it's virtual goods is one of your revenue models.
Yes.
So, what are you doing in revenue? Are you talking about that? What are you doing in virtual goods?
The one thing we will share is we do over $1 million a month in virtual goods sales, and so we leave it at that, and you can guess how much over that. But
where does that go next year?
Yeah, well, so far, good trajectory, and I'll leave it at that. So we're feeling very confident about the direction of the business.
And what about advertising? First of all, do you make more money from virtual goods or advertising? So
when I got there a few years ago, we did no advertising. It was all virtual goods, and that business has grown, but the advertising is actually growing even faster right now. So my prediction is, today it's probably 2/3 virtual goods, but over time I expect it to go to about half-half.
Well, why do you say that? And why is advertising growing so much?
Yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive in a world where virtual goods in the last year or two have sort of taken off at least in the Silicon Valley consciousness. But I'm convinced that if you're a brand advertiser, advertising on the net is really difficult. It's very easy to tell the story of your brand if you're telling the story through a TV commercial. It's really hard to do that through a banner. So Gaia seems to have, over the last few years, because it's a virtual world, because it has elements of the real world in it, so it's not men in tights fighting monsters, it's actually feels very real world, sort of like summer camp. It's fun, it's a better version of the real world. In it makes sense to have virtual brands that tell their story through it. So I'll give you a concrete example. If a brand were to advertise, I'll give a real concrete example. Adidas advertised on MySpace, and what they did was they got a fan page, they got a page about themselves, and people could friend the page, and some people would actually take the logo and put it on their own pages, right? Right. In contrast, on Gaia, you got Nikes, you ran faster.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right?
Yeah. So there's a virtual good component there too.
There's a virtual good component. It makes sense to have Coke machines inside our world where you can go get a Coke, you can drink a Coke, and it maybe could give you a boost of energy while you're for a short time while you're at it.
Or Coke, what kind of campaign? What are they paying? And if you look at CPMs, and if you are
ultimately every advertiser does extrapolate down to a CPM.
But I think is it on Gaia?
Okay, so we haven't actually shared the specifics on the CPMs. What I can tell you is what they end up buying is something that we have 3 billion page views a month, so it's very easy to give a tremendous amount of impressions to address any need for the impressions in the M's in the CPM. But the the part that makes it really interesting is this level of deep engagement that you could, for example, take the movie Alice in Wonderland. For the movie Alice in Wonderland, we had over 100 million rabbit holes all over the site. So you could be talking on a message board about something completely different. You could be talking about Lost and the last episode coming up. But a rabbit hole would appear, and if you clicked, you could jump into it. You could jump into the space.
And they would pay per click too.
And they would pay. Actually, they looked at more like a brand advertising. So the way that they end up judging them, and the way that we kept all of our advertisers, we're very good at renewing our advertisers, is that we'll spend a lot of money on third-party outside market research. So we'll do pre- and post-market research that shows, just like any brand advertiser or CPG would look for in this space. So what's the favorability towards the brand? What's the brand awareness, aided and unaided? What's the purchase intent? And consistently, if we'll spend the money on that on that research, we'll find we get better results than they'll get from almost any other campaign online.
So give us an example of how you would approach the producers of Alice in Wonderland and say, look, we can get you better engagement if you spend your dollars with us versus some other traditional ways.
Sure. So we have internally, the company is started by a group of artists and comic book artists and a group of developers. And the artists are god-awful talented, and they actually get heavily involved in putting together any proposals for a brand. So these days, Disney's done a lot of advertising with us. Time Warner advertised with us, and we don't have to sell so hard. So Time Warner advertised with us. We drove more trailers than the front page of Yahoo Takeover to one of their movies. As a result, they invested in us. Sony, same deal, advertised with us. We did better than a MySpace takeover in terms of driving traffic, and then they asked to invest in us. So we've hit a point now where we've got credibility with the studios, so we don't have to go in and teach them something new. But what we do that's probably unusual is we'll actually put our artists on the project before we actually launch anything with them, before we've even sold them, and try to design something that's really creative that the users are going to love, and then show it to them. And if it resonates with them, they want to do the advertising with us. We're very careful to do something that we think actually makes not only the brand happy, but actually the users like it. If the users like it, it all works. If they don't, and they see it as interrupt advertising, then it doesn't work.
And how much was an Alice in Wonderland? How much was that?
So I can give you just a range. Our campaigns will go from 50 or 100,000 on the low end to $1.5 million campaigns.
And how long does that last?
$1.5 million campaigns, maybe 6 months. Yeah.
You raised $11 million in 2008. That's your last.
That's our last round. Yeah.
You raised over $30 million.
Yeah.
Are you profitable now?
We reached profitability last fall, but we don't share any more detail than that.
Okay.
And we have a lot of cash in the bank, and fortunately, we don't share that, but certainly well over $10 million of cash in the bank, and now it's just a matter of investing, and we don't need to raise. We won't be raising money again.
Okay.
Yeah. If anything, we're looking for companies to buy.
Oh, you are looking for companies to buy. What are you looking to buy?